Welcome back. Week number 10, picks against the spread. Sorry we didn't do this last week. I try to do it every Thursday or Friday, but something popped up last week and I just wasn't really in the right state to do it. So yeah, this time we're back though, week 10. Last week I put my picks in the community page. I went 4, 5, and 3, a very odd record you don't see very often, but there were 3 pushes. We had the Chargers game. They were a -3. We had Minnesota was a -3, and Tampa Bay was a -3. So on the year, my record still sucks, 55, 66, and 7, but just a couple of good weeks, and I should be back to 500. But will we get those good weeks? I don't know. That's a wait and see. But anyway, by the way, for the Giants fans out there, I will be talking to the entertainer tomorrow, live stream I'm assuming on his channel, so check us out. That's assuming nothing else comes up because you never know with me and him. But still, that should be happening tomorrow afternoon at some point. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. I will leave the timestamps for each game in the description, and let's get into it. First game, it's a Sunday game at 9:30. Not London. This time it's in Germany. So I don't think I've seen that before. There may have been Germany games in the past, but I don't think I've ever seen one, so that's pretty cool. It'll be the Seattle Seahawks at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but obviously the Buccaneers are not actually home. They're just labeled as the home team. So Tampa's -2.5. They're favored by 2.5 in this one. And yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. You would think record-wise, Seattle, of course, is playing much better in that regard. But I guess being a +2.5 for Seattle is a good amount of respect against a Tom Brady-led team. This is obviously not the Tampa Bay team that we've seen back in 2020, 2021. But they did get themselves a pretty big win last week. I hate when people say Tampa is, it was a must-win game for Tampa. It's really not, because they're in such a bad division with the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints. Like, they all suck. So I don't even think this is a must-win game for Tampa. But anyway, I'm going to pick the Buccaneers in this game. I do think you can pass on that Seattle secondary. I know Tariq Woolen's had a very impressive year, and Quandre Diggs is a good ball hawk. I get all that. But, Brady's going to have his weapons back, of course. Godwin's looking healthy now. Mike Evans is out there. Even Cade Otton's making a nice contribution at tight end, filling in for Cameron Brate. That run game has to get going. You can run on Seattle, so hopefully this is a good spot for the run game for Tampa to finally open some things up here. I love Kenneth Walker. He's having a great year. You can run on Tampa this year. Their run defense is not what it used to be, but I just think, Seattle, they are a great story, but I think Tampa at some point is going to start playing much better football, and I could see it starting this week. So I'll take Tampa -2.5. Next is the Minnesota Vikings at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's only a -3.5, and I think that really coincides with Josh Allen and his uncertainty about playing. And I would say based on this spread, I would say Vegas probably doesn't expect Josh Allen to play. I could be wrong about that, but I would think Buffalo would be at least a 6.5 point favorite in a game like this. So to see it at only 3.5, that's either a lot of respect for Minnesota or the fact that Josh Allen just might not play in this game. If he doesn't play, it will be Case Keenum, who had his moments, especially with the Vikings, revenge game for him. But I remember watching Keenum last year as a member of the Browns. I wasn't that impressed. He's just a game manager at this point. But I'm still going to take Buffalo -3.5. Buffalo's defensive line, their pass rush versus that Minnesota offensive line, they can take advantage of that matchup and make it a tough day for Kirk Cousins and force him into mistakes. It's at Buffalo. So the Bills, they always tend to play very good football at home. I know it's a different circumstance, and I'm sure guys like Gabe Davis won't pop off because, it's Case Keenum. And while I get Minnesota has been impressive this year record-wise, I don't think they're in like that elite territory like the Buffalo Bills are. So we'll see how much of that team is really Josh Allen and how much of that is just coaching and a talented roster. I feel like it's all of it, but we'll see what they look like if it is in fact Case Keenum. But even if it is Keenum, I think they still can win that game. I hate that it's 3.5 and not 3, but hey, I'm still going to take Buffalo -3.5. Next, the Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears. Chicago is actually favored by 2.5. And I'm actually going to take Chicago. I'm kind of all in on this Chicago thing right now and the way Justin Fields is playing. The first 2, 3, 4 weeks of the year, Chicago's offense specifically was very unwatchable. They just passed the ball 10 times per game. But now they're opening things up, becoming more balanced. Khalil Herbert's getting more involved, and Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, everybody. So That Bears defense has a lot of flaws. We know that. But same thing with the Lions. Both of these defenses are really bad. So it's kind of just who can outscore who. And we saw last week Chicago put up like 32 points on Miami. Not to say Miami's defense is anything spectacular, but the fact that they were able to do that was pretty impressive. Chicago is the home team, and I just trust their offense more right now. Detroit, I know they won versus the Packers, but they didn't impress me that much. It took like 2 Aaron Rodgers goal line interceptions, and they still barely won that game, it felt like. So you know what? I'm more impressed with Chicago. Yes, they lost, but they looked more impressive overall in that game last week. So I'm going to keep rolling with Justin Fields till it stops. I love watching that guy play. It's very entertaining, so hopefully he keeps it going, and I'll take Chicago -2.5. The Denver Broncos are at the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are favorites by 3 in this one. The Broncos are coming off a bye, but I don't really think they have the coaching staff in place to take much advantage of that bye, because I have not been impressed at all with Nathaniel Hackett. The last time we saw the Broncos play, they had that kind of emotional win, if you want to call it that, at London versus the Jaguars. It was a nice, kind of last-minute win. Russ made that good throw to KJ Hamler, blah, blah, blah. But still, I just don't really trust this Broncos team whatsoever. Tennessee is a better all-around team in my opinion. And it does seem like Ryan Tannehill should be back for this game. I would assume, because at least against Kansas City last Sunday night, he was out there warming up before the game, so he had to be somewhat close. I'm assuming another week off and he'll be okay. So Ryan Tannehill should be back. The Broncos, of course, they traded Bradley Chubb, so they're kind of like rebuilding now in a way. So I don't really fear that Broncos defense as much as when Chubb was there. And ever since like week 3, Derrick Henry's been unbelievable, so I'm sure he'll keep that going. So I'll take Tennessee -3, but I am curious to see how this Broncos team looks coming out of their bye. Next, the Jacksonville Jaguars are at the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is a -9.5, so a pretty big spread here. I'm going to take Jacksonville to cover this 9.5. I don't think they're that bad where they should be getting disrespected this much. I expected more like a 7.5, not to say it's that far off from what I thought, but Jacksonville at least has the offense to keep up. And KC's defense, it's not that great. Like, they've had their moments this year, but overall, looking at their season stats, like, they're not that great of a defense. And I think Jacksonville, they have enough of their good games offensively. They've had some bad ones too. I know that game versus the Texans like a month ago was terrible, but Jacksonville, at least consistently for the most part this year, has put up respectable offensive numbers, and I think they could do it out here in Kansas City. Of course, it's hard to kind of bet against KC right now because they are playing great football. But on Sunday night, they did get down, and it took them until like 3 minutes to go, down by 8, to come back in that game. So the Chiefs, they will slip up here and there, and I think, this is a game where it should be at least close enough, or I don't really see the Chiefs blowing out the Jaguars. I still think Kansas City will win this game by like 4, 5, 6 points, but I do think Jacksonville can cover 9.5, so I will take Jacksonville. Next, the Cleveland Browns are at the Miami Dolphins. A confusing spread in my opinion. So the Dolphins are favorites by 3.5, and to me, it felt like it should have been more like 5 or 6, 6.5. I just don't know why it's so close. Maybe Cleveland is better than what their record says they are. They're 3-5 right now, but Miami has been pretty good, above average against the run this year, so hopefully this is not a game where Nick Chubb goes completely, berserk like he always tends to do. But I'm going to take Miami in this game. I just don't think it makes too much sense. It kind of feels fishy, kind of feels like a trap, and part of me feels I should not take Miami because of that, but I just know that if Miami beats them by more than 4, I'm going to hate myself for that. So I will take Miami. Cleveland's defense this year, specifically run defense, has not been good at all. They just acquired Jeff Wilson, the Dolphins. He played pretty well last week. Raheem Mostert's had a good year, so they can probably run on them. And we know what Miami's offense is capable of with Tua playing the way he is, and Tyreek Hill's like pretty much on pace to break the all-time receiving record in a season. Jalen Waddle having a fantastic year as well. So yeah, I just don't see the Browns defense being able to stop this Dolphins offense. Maybe they can just chew clock if Nick Chubb does have a good game, but I just don't really know if that's going to be the case. So I will take Miami -3.5, but that number is a bit suspicious. Next we have my team. Well, the Houston Texans at the New York Giants. The Giants are favorites by 4 points here. Of course, the recent news with the Giants is that one of their best defensive players, Xavier McKinney, had a bye week accident on like an ATV or something, so he's on IR. That definitely sucks for the Giants. He was like the play caller for that defense. So yeah, it'll possibly be a big loss. We'll see how big of a loss it is. But, Houston, they're in a rough spot. Even Brandon Cooks doesn't want to play there, it seems like. I know he kind of said tonight he's willing to play for them still and whatever, but you can tell his heart's probably not in the right place there. So I will take the Giants as favorites by 4. And I feel like saying that because I trust the Giants coaching staff. I mean, if this was like the Joe Judge, Jason Garrett era, I probably just wouldn't pick the Giants in this spot because there is no advantage. But giving Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, and Don Martindale, 2 weeks to prepare for a Houston Texans team, a home game, I'll take the Giants in that case. I know they're only 4-point favorites. It's a close one. So you know what? I guess it is a bit fishy, but I think the Giants coaching staff will put them in a great spot here. The players just have to go out there and execute, which hopefully they do. So I will take the Giants as 4-point favorites. Next, the New Orleans Saints are at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers coming off a bye, but they are a 1.5-point underdogs at home here. New Orleans played on Monday night. They looked pretty awful, to say the least. And I'm going to pick the Steelers because I feel like this is a game the Steelers will just win for no reason. I don't think Pittsburgh's a good team right now, obviously, but the Saints have not been impressive either. I don't know why they continue to stick with Andy Dalton. I don't really see the appeal. I literally think Dalton might be the third best quarterback on that roster. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think Jameis Winston when healthy is better. And Taysom Hill, I know he's not a great quarterback, but he can at least move the ball. Andy Dalton is not even protecting the ball anymore. He's turning it over, fumbling, interceptions. It's just not looking good for the Saints right now. Their defense is not what we thought it was coming into the year. So yeah, with Mike Tomlin coming off a bye, the Steelers have always they've won these games, and I'll stick with that narrative. So it's gonna be a boring game. I'm not looking forward to it whatsoever, but I will take the Steelers plus 1.5. Next, the Colts are at the Raiders. This should be a fascinating one here. Of course, Jeff Saturday being the interim head coach here for the Colts. No coaching experience. The Raiders are favored by 4.5. I'm going to take the Raiders. I mean, as you guys know, I can't stand the Raiders. I picked them in that game versus the Saints a couple weeks ago, and they scored 0 points. I was just why do I bother anymore? But the Colts are at a point right now where they are more inept than the Raiders, and that's saying a lot. So you know what? I will take the Raiders minus that 4.5. Kind of wish it was 2.5 or 3, but I guess it is what it is. Jonathan Taylor will probably be back for the Colts, so I don't like that. But the Raiders' run D has been pretty decent this year. And for Indy, I mean, yeah, things look pretty ugly right now. I don't know how bought in these guys are at this point. It seems like their season's kind of over. I know record-wise they're not atrocious. I think they're 3-5-1 at this point. Yeah, so I mean, look, I guess crazier things have happened, but I think those players know that front office wants to rebuild, and it's Sam Ehlinger for crying out loud. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. It kind of seems like they want to just play for the draft at this point. So it is what it is. They might as well because the Colts can't get a quarterback decision right to save their lives. But anyway, for this particular game, I will take the Raiders minus 4.5. Next, we have the Cowboys at the Green Bay Packers. Should be an interesting one. Dallas is favored by 4 on the road. And yeah, I mean, I've been just trying to, I guess, still have hope that Green Bay is a decent team, but I'm kind of done with them now after what I saw against the Lions. I know some of those interceptions were a bit unlucky there, but you know what? The Packers just don't have the offensive firepower that they need to just be a good enough offense. I think their defense, it's still pretty good, but even Rashawn Gary just tore his ACL, which is awful. So yeah, that team is kind of falling apart. Romeo Doubs, who is arguably their, not their best, but second best receiver behind Lazard, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks now. So yeah, this Packers team is just kind of falling apart right now, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how, mentally bought in Aaron Rodgers is right now, so that's another problem. Dallas, despite, me not being a big Mike McCarthy guy, they are coming off a bye, so I think they can prepare to beat a Packers team that has a lot of limitations these days. So it should be an interesting game, and I definitely could see this being the game that Green Bay but just finds a way to win the game. It wouldn't shock me, but just, I don't know, for some reason, I just feel like Dallas is going to win, and it's only 4 points. I will take Dallas minus 4. The Cardinals are at the Rams. The Rams are favorites by 1.5 points. There is uncertainty with Matthew Stafford missing practice with a concussion. We know the NFL is more serious about concussions now, so it seems like he's in serious doubt. And John Wolford is their backup, and I don't really have much faith in that guy. And even with Matthew Stafford, the Rams have really not been impressive at all this year, unfortunately. So, even last week versus Tampa, I know their defense hasn't looked right, Tampa, this year. But outside of that 169-yard touchdown by Cooper Kupp, that offense did nothing. So the Rams really do scare me. They don't have any running game whatsoever. Cam Akers came back and had 5 carries for 3 yards, a typical Cam Akers game this year. So it sucks. I don't think Arizona's anything great this year. I would have loved to have seen Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore play together. I guess with Hopkins back, the offense looks a bit better, and James Conner looks more healthy now, so that's good. But they don't impress me either. But yeah, I'll take Arizona plus 1.5. This could be a 1-point win for the Rams for all I know at this point. So I don't know. I don't like either of these teams, but I will take the underdog. I'll take Arizona. Sunday Night Football, the LA Chargers are at the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners coming off their bye. The Chargers are just banged up. They just released their first-round pick from 2019, Jerry Tillery. So, not the best vibes right now for the Chargers. They did win last week. That was good to see for them. They won by 3, I believe. But the Niners coming off a bye, really good coaching staff, getting Christian McCaffrey, getting Debo back healthy. I'm going to take the Niners here. It is 7 points. It is a lot of points here. I completely get that, but I think this is a matchup where Jimmy Garoppolo can thrive. This is a matchup where, Christian McCaffrey versus a historically weak run defense can play very well. So I will take the Niners. It is a lot of points, and Justin Herbert, you don't want to bet against him as a touchdown underdog, but he's without Mike Williams, without Keenan Allen most likely, so the odds are definitely stacked against the Chargers right now. Things are not going that great for them. Record-wise, the Chargers are still in it, but I just think a lot of guys are dropping like flies, and I guess the aspirations they had before the year of being Super Bowl contenders, that might not be the case right now. We're still halfway through. There's a chance it could happen, but I think the Niners right now are in a much better spot. They need this game more record-wise, so I will take San Francisco -7. Lastly, the Washington Commanders, Monday Night Football. They are at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are 11-point underdogs here in this NFC East matchup. I'm going to take Washington. I don't know if I love it either, because I definitely can see a scenario where the Eagles have one of their second quarters and they go up 28-7 or something. I don't know. But I think Washington, there's a lot of positivity right now because of Dan Snyder selling the team. And I think Washington fans and the whole organization, that's great news, obviously. So hopefully that can kind of propel them and just keep the game close. Don't come out and get blown out on Monday Night Football here versus Philadelphia, who is a much better team. We get that. But at least Washington with Taylor Heineke, I don't think Heineke is more talented than Carson Wentz, but Heineke plays really hard, and I think his teammates love the guys. So I think the rest of the team is playing harder, and Washington can stop the run. We've seen that this year for the most part, so maybe Philadelphia, who is a great running team, doesn't have the same success as usual. I don't think I would give Washington much of a chance to win the game, but to lose by less than 11, I would say it's possible. So I will take Washington +11 in this one. So that'll do it for Week 10's spread picks. Let me know in the comments which ones you agree or disagree with. I'll probably go under 500 again because that's how it's been this year. But hopefully I come back with a better record, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys next time.